Nothing gets to the left-hand side of the brain without passing through the right side first. And this is why cognitive behavioral therapy is so powerful, because it's not just information. Okay? If it was just information, it's going to bounce out of your head. It is a process that we bring people through that will help them to experientially come to some conclusions in their life. This is why there's so many programs out there, education programs, that they're so impotent. Because we think that education programs is what we need. We've tried this in our society over the years, and back in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, the Just Say No. What we need to do is we need to educate our kids. And so in the schools, we told them about, here's your brain on drugs, and the picture of an egg frying. We kind of want to give them information about what alcohol does to the brain, what drugs do to your system, all which is valuable. But that ultimately didn't change behavior because we aren't taking people through the process. That's why I wonder if these current meth ads, you notice that you see the meth ads on TV where the don't eat, not even once, right? They're more experiential in nature, really giving people an idea of this is what it looks like. And so the jury's out on the power of these ads, but I think it's a whole different approach that I think is quite interesting. We're going to talk about the 4 levels that we learn in the brain. My notes are different than yours. What page are we on? Do you see where we're on? 3. Page 3. We're only on page 3. Okay. Let's just a little bit of review so we understand. We experientially learn what we do. There's reasons why we do what we do. Okay. So before things enter into the left side brain, if you will, or a decision-making area, they go through different levels. We're going to call them levels, if you will, in the brain. And the reality of it is when we're developing as a person, or as we move through life, if there are different areas in our brain, or these different levels, if you will, that I'm going to describe, if our learning process is undeveloped, or we get stuck in a certain area for a variety of different reasons, then it will affect what we do, this left side of the brain, this information, or the reason why we make decisions, okay? So let's just look at some of these different parts of the brain and what they do and how this all works with CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. The level 1 there is attachment. Attachment. This is a fascinating theory, if you will. If you go and you do some study on this, all really brain science is theoretical in a sense. It's not really hard science, it's soft science. But it makes sense to me as I'm studying it. And the whole idea of attachment is that all the studies point to how we were raised, how you were raised, how I was raised, that each one of us, because we've been raised in a certain environment and because we just live in a world where there are problems and people are imperfect, that it's going to create fractures in our soul. No one can escape it. And they have said that the attachment pain is the most excruciating and most difficult pain that any of us can experience as an individual. And when we get to underlying causes, we're going to draw some correlations or connect some dots here, that one of the main reasons that you and I self-medicate is to bury or cover this painful attachment pain. There's a one-to-one correlation with attachment pain. We can attach or fixate on anything. It's fascinating because in brain science, they will do all sorts of MRIs and different, hook you up to electrodes and do, the brain, there's a lot of electrical activity in the brain. And so when they expose people to certain type of stimuli or behaviors, then they can track where the part of the brain lights up. And so they'll know what happens at any particular time. One thing that's very interesting is that the amygdala is the pleasure center of the brain, okay? The little almond-shaped part in your brain. It is right next to a part called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is where where attachments, where we have our memories about what has happened to us, about where we store information, the painful memories, even good memories, but this is in the hippocampus. The amygdala, pleasure center, and the hippocampus are actually side by side in the brain. So, what happens is the part of the brain in the amygdala area that we use for orgasm, sexual orgasm, is right next to the hippocampus, which we deal with attachment. And so this is how people develop fetishes. If you have anything you equate an orgasm with an attachment, you can develop a fetish, whether it be a foot fetish or a pain fetish or any kind of fetishes. This is how they happen, because these two parts of the brain are located. This is the power of attachment. And when it comes to addiction, this is an area that can be directly affected in our brain, because we become fixated or attached onto a certain thing. And we do it for a reason, underlying reasons, and we're going to be talking about that as we move through. Level 2 is the fear center. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on all these, but I'm just going to run through them here. The fear center is, again, this emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, is there. And this is the guard shack of the brain. It will determine whether things are good or bad or scary. And it'll shut down the brain if it has to, put you in survival mode if it has to. So when I said, a minute ago, when I said dogs, okay, and you had an emotional response to the word dogs. Well, that emotional response came out of this part of the brain. This is where this information is stored and helps us to know whether this is dangerous or whether we get warm fuzzies about it or whatever our experience may be. Level 3 is our identity. This is the cingulate cortex part of the brain. This is where we form our identity. It's what allows us to be ourselves even in difficult situations. Now, if this part of our brain is underdeveloped for whatever reason, then we become inhibited. We're inhibited for any particular reason because we have identity issues. Oftentimes, people will turn to substance abuse or addictive to behavior, especially in the form of alcohol or drugs, because those inhibitions are released. Right? I could be more myself. Or I seem to be a lot more up and a party person, and this often can happen because of this area of the brain that deals with identity. Level 4 is the control center of the brain, if you will, the prefrontal cortex. It's the part of our brain that has executive control over our cravings. If this piece of the brain, if you will, is underdeveloped, you won't be able to say no to the second piece of pie or to that pornography spam email that comes your way. When this particular part of the brain is underdeveloped, this is our control center. Now, these are the 4 levels that influence directly the cerebral cortex, which is the left side of our brain, what we're calling the left side of our brain, and that's the fifth level, which is information. That's the file cabinet, right? That's where you store all your information. And the important thing we have to realize is if the train on the way through these different levels get derailed at any particular part, it's going to affect this 5th level. This is where our decisions and reasons why we do what we do is in the file cabinet of our left side of our brain. And this is why it's so important to have cognitive behavioral therapy. This is why we need to go through these different levels, if you will, experientially be able to walk people through or coach people through the process of going through the different levels in the brain so they don't get stuck on any one of those points.